Welcome to episode 210 of Empty the Bench on the Empty the Bench Podcast Network. Follow us on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you like and subscribe on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ETB Network. At about 635 subscribers now on YouTube. So make sure you like and subscribe and help us grow to that magic number of 1,000. Make sure you follow our website, etbpodcast.com, for all the latest blogs and information from all our contributors. So make sure you follow that as well. And if you want to listen to our podcast on the audio side, Acast, Spotify, iHeart, Apple Podcasts, basically we're on all the platforms. So if you don't feel like watching the video and you just want to listen to the audio, you can listen to the audio. Nick DiMartino in for Tom Albano this week. Moving the Goalposts, our new show on the network. Episode 1 dropped, which, by the way, did really well. I just checked it before we came on here. Close, approaching 100 views on episode 1. So how did you like doing episode 1 so far?
It was good. I'm glad it did well in terms of viewership. I hope people liked it. I hope episode 2 does well, does just as well.
By the way, Senator Teamster, best story I think of that episode.
Yes, I think it was.
So go check that out. It's on the YouTube channel. It's also available on all audio platforms. So go check that out. All right. So for this episode, it's going to be very, I don't know. I'm not saying anything that's really breaking news. It's going to be very NFL and very NBA heavy. That's pretty much how it's going to go. You and I will be disgruntled about a certain team, but I'll save that for a few moments.
I'm sure anybody can figure out which team we're talking about.
Yes, it's a certain green team in New York. But a lot of NFL news going on around. We'll talk about Joe Burrow and the Bengals being investigated because a video, I think, surfaced of him wearing like a cutout arm brace, and then he couldn't throw the ball on the sideline. We'll get to that story. Brandon Staley just can't win against the media. We'll talk about that as well.
Or anybody else.
Yeah, and I think the Chargers are just a disappointment. Another firing on the offensive coordinator front with the Steelers. We'll get to that one. Also, NBA, LaMelo Ball apparently has to cover his own company tattoo on his ear, which I didn't know that was a rule until I looked it up about 1 million times to understand the clarification. So we'll break that one down. Also, Shaq wants to get involved in ownership in Las Vegas. Now, I think, are they the only one that doesn't have a team in Vegas right now? The NBA?
Yeah. Well, yeah, now because the Oakland A's are moving there.
So they're the only one left. So I guess that kind of makes sense on that front. Also, we'll talk about another owner in New York who can't seem to keep his mouth shut in James Dolan. So, and then we'll get into some sports media because I know you like that. I like that. We'll get into that at the end. But first off here, let's get into the NFL. You and I were talking about this already. The NFL investigation of the Bengals. Joe Burrow's wrist injury could take weeks. So just to clarify, Burrow is out for the rest of the year. The investigation will take weeks. Now, right. This was interesting. So I'm sure, like me, you were on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, and you saw a video of him in a brace walking into the facility, and you probably were saying, "Huh." I don't know. What were your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts on this whole thing is that the Bengals need to be fined for this. I mean, this is a clear... I mean, they have to disclose these injuries, and they clearly were covering it up. The spread was 3.5. If this knowledge was public, the spread would have been a lot bigger. I didn't bet this game on an app or anything, but I am in a football pool, and I was winning that pool. I was in first place. The reason I'm not in first place anymore is because I had the Bengals.
Now, if I remember correctly, I read it afterwards. And DraftKings, by the way, has been really good about this with injuries, like, and also the Bijan Robinson thing when he was sick. DraftKings has been really good about integrity, like giving bets back to.
Yeah.
FanDuel, not so much, at least from what I've heard. Like, FanDuel just said, screw you, we're taking your money. But I don't know. I mean, I think if you said it was 3.5, I think I took Ravens to cover on that. But I think this would have been like 6 or 7. I think
At least, I mean, if we had known he was injured, but teams are like I said, they're required to disclose all injuries.
the injury list. Yeah.
I mean, gambling is the biggest reason is one of the biggest reasons they have to do that, because otherwise, how can betting odds accurately be made if a team is covering up an injury?
And also, what about the individuals? Like if you put bets on Burrow.
Yeah, that too. I mean, how can you fairly make a prop bet on Joe Burrow not knowing he was injured? I mean, the odds would have been drastically different. So it's really not fair to any of us who had the Bengals if we plus 3.5, which was essentially a false line.
Right. Like I said,
it's a false line. We were essentially defrauded into betting these games, not by the betting companies or anything, but
by the NFL.
In effect, we were defrauded into these fake lines.
Like I said,
which is a huge problem. Now, I don't know why they didn't want to disclose this to the NFL exactly.
I think part of it is they don't want to show weakness because the Bengals are a nobody without Burrow. Their backup is what? Jake Browning, I think, the guy from the XFL. I mean,
he played at Washington.
Okay. So, and if you look at the statistics this year, I think we talked about this on Football Friday, and I think we talked about it on our live stream, that the amount of backups that have had to play this year, quarterback-wise, that we've seen already because of injuries is an insane amount already this year. And I guess part of this was, well, maybe if we don't disclose it, maybe he might play, and which he did end up playing and got hurt, and he actually tore the ligament in his arm or in his hand, but I don't know. Something's integrity was obviously not kept here.
No, I mean, I guess maybe part of the reason is because it's sort of giving away some type of game plan or something. Like, I guess if the team knows that the quarterback is injured, they change their game plan a little bit. That's the only reason I could that's the only incentive the Bengals would have to hide this injury. But no, this is not normal. I mean, like teams are supposed to report these injuries, any of these injuries, to the NFL.
And on top of that, because you said it before, it's all about gambling. Like that, you could just play that 1 million times. I mean, it's money, like millions, and we're not talking about like small dollars here. We're talking about millions upon billions in gambling. Now.
Yeah, and not just. Well, the thing is that what these betting apps do, the odds makers, they do their very best to. I mean, they're the only people. Like, people say you are what your record says you are. I say you are what the betting odds say you are.
I agree with you 1,000,000%.
That is much closer to the truth than the whole "you are what your record says you are." And the thing is, Vegas cannot accurately make betting odds in this multi-million-dollar industry without knowing, especially with a star quarterback like Joe Burrow, without knowing all of these injuries. I mean, it's not that I care about the betting apps exactly, but it still is how they run their business. And all of that information has to be relayed to them. Otherwise, they can't accurately make lines. And then the bettors are totally screwed because we're given false information.
Well, I don't know. This might be a little more tinfoil hat conspiracy, what I'm about to say, but I think that they still control the lines a little bit more than we want to actually give them credit for. No, the betting apps. I think that because how many times, I'm sure you've said this and I've said this 1,000,000 times, how many times we're like, oh, well, they're forcing you to take the other side of the bet. How many times have we said that? Like 1,000,000 times we've probably said that. And
usually it's because, and it's not because but the thing is that they do control the odds, obviously. And the reason they control the odds is it's like the whole sort of theory of division of labor. Like, they're the right people to control the odds. They're given the most information. They're math geeks. Look, nobody's perfect with it, but it's like, that's what their job is, to make the lines. Like, people often, and myself included, we often look at the lines and think, how can this be the line?
Right.
But there's a reason they do that. I remember one time I was in the Bahamas. I was 18 at the time. And remember the guy Travis Trice on Michigan State, the basketball player? And I remember the over-under was 1.5 threes. And I was like, this is the easiest bet ever. And I bet on Travis.
We all say that. We all say
1.5 threes. Sure enough, he hit 1 3 the whole game. So I was just like, That's a perfect example. Like what you think, what you imagine is going to happen is not always what does.
Right. And at the same time, because I was doing some research on how they determine like certain prop bets, like for threes, or a lot of it is the average for the season. That's how they determine like an over under prop for
Essentially.
somebody. So this is a big issue. Now, are we going to see like draft picks being taken away? No. But I think you're going to see, I don't know, what, $100,000, $200,000 fine, maybe? That, which is nothing to an NFL owner, by the way.
I mean,
But
yeah, to an NFL owner, I don't know. I mean, it really begs the question: what is an appropriate punishment, and what punishment do teams care about? I mean, like, do teams care about if they did have to give a draft pick?
the
Do teams care
NFL,
about draft
that would
picks?
be massive. In the NFL, it would be a big deal.
It could be, but it depends on what draft pick.
I think, I don't know. Would you find, well, not find, but would you take a first round draft pick away from somebody who didn't disclose an injury? That sounds like a lot.
I mean, it depends on it's a lot depending on where you're picking.
I think
If it's a team like the Bengals, who at the best get like a mid-round pick,
it might not
that
matter.
big of a deal. It's not going to matter that much to the Bengals if they lose a first-round pick.
I mean, if you took a first and a second rounder, then maybe we're talking a different story.
I'd be in favor of taking away draft picks. I just, for the most part, don't know how big of a deal it would be. Now, the problem with the whole take away draft picks thing is it really just depends on how bad of a team you are. And if you're a better team, the punishment is not as harsh.
I'll give you another example of that. Since you like to talk baseball, I'll give an analogy in this regard. The Astros. Think about it. Like the Astros got what, a $5 million. Now the difference is with Major League Baseball, it's in their CBA what the max punishment is. So the max punishment I think was like, I don't know, it was a suspension plus $5 million fine. That was it. That's the max fine they could give. What is $5 million to an MLB owner? It's nothing.
Nothing. It's nothing.
And I don't think they got any other punishment really. Like they were basically said, don't do it again.
Don't do it again. That's all it was. I mean, and that was far worse than what the Bengals did because the Astros actually cheated.
Right. So I wouldn't say the Bengals were cheating. Like, because some people are saying, like, oh, well, they held information and stop. How many times have we seen people like bend the rules in professional sports?
It's not cheating. Like they're not getting much of an advantage from it. It's just it's information that they have to disclose.
Well, like you said before, and I'll end this topic on this, that basically now that they're in, and not just the NFL, but every professional sport now being in bed with the gambling companies, you can't hide information the way you used to, putting teams together. Now. So, and someone like Joe Burrow, who just got a massive contract in the offseason, big news. He was injured in the preseason, which, by the way, he was even lucky to get the contract when because of the timing of when he got hurt. But big name, big quarterback. You can't lose the news cycle that way.
No, I mean, by the way, I think it's better this way now that the NFL, now that the sports leagues are in bed with the gambling companies. I mean, when people say in bed, it sounds sort of derogatory, but I mean, like, the fact that they're working together means there's a lot more transparency. And I feel like if this had happened before gambling was legalized, it wouldn't have been as big of a deal.
No one would have cared.
Right. Yeah. I feel like nobody would have cared in a lot of ways. But, like, it's not just that. First of all, gambling is legal somewhere. Like people in Vegas, Atlantic City, even when it wasn't legal nationwide, people were still gambling on games and it was still a big industry. So even then, all that information should be disclosed. It's just even more now for more people using betting apps. And I mean, in many different, I don't know exactly how many states it is, but I know in our home states, gambling is legal.
Well, finally, I should say.
It was finally. So, I mean, now is even more of a reason. People often say, like, gambling has this sort of, how do I say it? Like, there's sort of a stigma attached to gambling.
Oh, no, that's the correct word. 100%. Stigma.
Yeah, exactly. There's a stigma attached to gambling. And, you know, people often use this as an example. It's like, well, actually, no, I think it's the opposite. I think the fact that we know about this and the Bengals are probably going to be punished for it is actually the opposite. It very much makes the opposite case for the stigma to gambling, because at least now it's not like underground.
It's not like you have to go in an alley somewhere and pay a bookie.
If you get screwed then and you're betting with bookies, I mean, they might kill you at some point if you don't pay up, or they say you don't pay up. But you can't you can't really complain to anybody about well, my bookie is threatening to kill me. It's like, no, you know what I mean? Because the whole thing is underground. It's a similar thing now. It's like, okay, we all know the Bengals lied about this.
Oh yeah, big time.
They're sending the signal, possibly, that you can't do this anymore. That you're going to have to be forthcoming with your injuries, and we can't be screwing over gamblers.
Well, and like you said, it was underground. Those people are angry. Now, the only difference is now it can be public because everything is now public. That's the only difference, really, that we're seeing here. But I mean, they will get fined. But
clear, I do think, I could be wrong about this. I am almost certain they had a similar rule before the gambling was legalized.
You mean where they have to disclose it? Yes.
Yeah. Right, because I remember there was a similar type of thing with Manny Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather.
Yes.
And Manny Pacquiao did it. Now, I didn't gamble on that, but I remember Pacquiao didn't disclose some sort of injury that he had.
Well, boxing is worse because you're in a solo sport. And if one of the sides is out, that could cost someone a lot of money.
Right. No. You're right. It's it would be like if Joe Burrow was the entire Bengals.
That's why I would say that one's a little bit different. But long story short,
but the point is the same.
Yeah, the point is the same. You got to disclose the injuries. You have to let the other team. You have to let the gamblers. You have to even the media who needs to know all this stuff.
Yeah,
because it's all part of the storyline, and the NFL cares about storylines, but.
It's all relevant information, and they're contractually obligated to do it, even if there was no gambling part of it, but especially because there's a gambling aspect to it. When people's money is on the line, that makes it so much worse.
The one debate I would make is that it's your choice to gamble and put money on stuff, but
you're gambling on false pretenses. It would be like
yes.
If you invest money with somebody, they can't defraud you. You wouldn't just say, well, you're choosing to invest with them. That's your problem.
Right. No. You're right. If there's false pretenses and you don't
that's the whole point, is that we were gambling on false pretenses.
Right. And by the way, speaking of false pretenses, that's great for the next story. Zach Wilson and the Jets. So Zach Wilson benched late. They lose 32-6 to the Bills. I was wholly wrong on this one. I don't know. I thought the Jets maybe would come out and actually have a little energy, momentum. Instead, they were a buzzkill and chose not to play.
I'm not surprised that happened. I said this was going to happen on Football Friday.
You did.
Not that it takes a genius to figure that out. It doesn't.
No, but I don't know. I just thought maybe they would have a little momentum, maybe something.
They weren't really any better than I expected them to be. I think the biggest problem is I'm not going to criticize Saleh for doing this. My only criticism is that he could have done this roughly 2 months ago and didn't.
He could have done this 3 to 6 weeks ago, to be honest.
He could have done it 2 months ago and said this when the inevitable was going to happen. I don't understand why he wouldn't. I mean, my biggest problem is it didn't take a genius to figure out that this was going to happen, even though Zach Wilson had a couple of good games. It doesn't it's pretty obvious that this was going to happen. You know why? Because it happened last year. And
they were delaying the inevitable. That's basically what they were doing.
Inevitable, exactly that. So why didn't they, knowing Aaron Rodgers was out for the year, why didn't they go get a quarterback? Well,
I was yelling about this forever that Kirk Cousins was out there, Derek Carr was out there. They could have had any of those guys, really, to be honest. You tell me Woody Johnson's not going to foot the bill? I mean, he foot the bill for Aaron Rodgers for crying out loud.
What I'm saying is that, even after Wilson was injured, when those guys weren't available,
there wasn't very much choices.
They could have gotten somebody who certainly would have been better than Zach Wilson.
Well, people laughed at me because I said, go get Carson Wentz. I know that's not
saying the same thing. Go get Carson Wentz.
I know he's terrible and he got paid a lot of money to do nothing essentially, but he's better than Tim Boyle.
Yeah, no. I mean, Carson Wentz could probably start.
Oh no, I have no doubt that he could start. And what he does on the field once he gets the football, that's a totally different story. But
you know what? Carson Wentz has been good in the past. And that is something.
No, track record, it totally matters. The NFL is one sport where if you have some credibility, Joe Flacco, to name one, who won one Super Bowl, and everyone wants to bring him on the practice squad, including Cleveland, who just signed him.
Well, he didn't just win one Super Bowl. He was good for a while. He was a really good player. Now he just seems disinterested.
Well, he falls into the category of, I won one, I got my one contract, I'm set for life, I don't care. Carson Wentz, you could say the same thing, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, except Carson Wentz is not nearly as accomplished as Joe.
Well, that's 100% true, but I'm saying he got his one contract, he got overpaid, and got hurt, and that was the end of him. But
I mean, I don't know. I always thought I think Carson Wentz is at least, I don't know, he's something in the better than Zach Wilson.
I would say, like,
they
he's
also
not
could have gotten
here.
Gardner Minshew.
Not that I no disrespect to Gardner Minshew, but like,
he isn't all that bad.
I would say for Wentz though, like, he's not here, he's like right here, like he's in the middle.
He's serviceable, is the point.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
that's right. Nobody's saying that nobody's saying that the Jets would have had a powerhouse offense with Carson Wentz, but it would have been something. It would have been serviceable. They would have been able to do something. Whereas Zach Wilson, it's not even like they're taking a risk on him. Like, you already know this is going to happen.
I mean, he's so bad. Like, and I've said it, and people say I'm not. You can't bring Zach Wilson back in here. Like,
no.
Like, he's done. Like, and everyone say like, "Oh, you can't cut him, Bubba." Yes, you can. You're not letting him get back on the field after that mess.
Of course, you can cut him.
Well, he does have one. I think one more year guarantee on the rookie deal, but I think that his body of work speaks for itself. Like, I know you and I joke about the whole thing. Well, you are what your record is. Well, in this case, he is what his record is. Totally.
No. I think he's worse.
Or worse, fine.
I think he's even worse than his record says. Like,
the Jets defense probably bailed him out a bunch of games also.
Yeah, I mean, he's without question worse than his record says. I mean, you could look at his stats and that would prove it. Although I think he's better than he was last year. I think the worst thing that could have happened for the Jets was that he had a couple of decent games. Well, it would have been better if he was horrible right away. And the Jets said, that's it.
You know what bought him probably an extra 2 weeks was that he actually played well against the Chiefs. I think that's what bought him and the Eagles. Well, beating the Eagles.
The Eagles. Not that he played well, but he beat them.
And people get mad at me because
by the way, not to mention beating the Bills.
Well, that's opening.
That was I think the Jets beating the Bills, even though I was so happy about it at the time. I was at that game. I think that was the worst thing that could have happened. The two worst things that could have happened: Aaron Rodgers getting hurt and winning that game. Because Rodgers getting hurt, it's self-evident. Winning that game was also awful because it made us overlook Zach Wilson, and every Jet fan and the whole organization was whistling past the graveyard.
By the way, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, who won't shut the fuck up on media and going on Pat McAfee, I'm running on a treadmill. I'm coming back. I'm doing way better. You're not coming back. Stop.
You're not coming back. There's no way. By the way, to be fair, I'll defend him for a second. Every athlete kind of does that. They all talk about they're going to come back soon.
No, but the problem is, well, okay, I agree with you, but his situation is so like over the top covered that like you as Jet fans, we're just sick of hearing it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. By the way, even if he could come back, it wouldn't be a good idea.
The man is 39 years old. His leg almost got snapped in half. I mean, and the Jets' offensive line.
The thing is, given his age and given everything that went on, and I said this before, a lot of this was on Joe Douglas. If he had just had a backup quarterback not named Zach Wilson, I mean, we would have been much better off. I mean, forget all of what we said about they could have gotten Carson Wentz, Gardner Minshew. They could have had a different backup quarterback other than Zach Wilson. It's not exactly that earth-shattering that a 40-year-old quarterback got injured.
Well, no, and I'm not debating that.
It's not the most unpredictable thing in the world. I mean, we didn't think it would. Nobody thought that it would be this degree and like to this bad of an injury this early. But I mean, it wouldn't have taken a genius to think he would have been injured at least 1 or 2 games throughout the season.
The issue I have, though, and I'll beat them over the head for this because I think it was a mistake. They should have kept Mike White. They should have kept Mike White. He actually played decent football for them. I'm not saying he was the answer by any means, but he was serviceable. There's that word again, serviceable.
Serviceable.
And he actually could throw the ball into the end zone, which Zach Wilson did once, finally.
Yeah, it was something. And I mean, the problem is that I'm convinced that if we still had Mike White, we'd still be in the situation because he always got hurt.
Well, he had the rib injuries. I remember that. But
he always got injured. He never stayed healthy. That's the only problem.
Well, the only issue was he would take massive hits. Like,
yeah, he would.
But I don't know. Obviously, this is a phrase I use a lot, but a fallacy of a predetermined outcome, because obviously we don't know exactly what would have happened. But
I mean, the truth is, if we had kept Mike White, I mean, the problem is I don't know if they would have paid him. And at the time, no Jet fan really cared. We were just sort of like, we have Aaron Rodgers and everything is amazing. That was our whole attitude.
The Dolphins just overpaid him to be a backup on a 2-year deal, which I was kind of shocked.
Yeah, in that case, good for him because he showed something.
Right. But
and the thing is, I think that's the thing. I think that's why the Dolphins paid him so much. They know Tua is so injury prone. And they were probably like, all right, we're going to keep Tua, but he's probably going to get injured, so we have to have a good backup.
I mean,
and that was their mindset. I don't think the Jets were thinking Aaron Rodgers might get injured the second play of the game of the season, or whatever number it was.
4 plays in. I think it was 4 plays in.
4 plays in. Okay.
But by the way, Tua actually proved that he hasn't actually been as injury prone this year. I don't think he's been out for an injury yet this year, has he?
Hasn't, and he's good.
He is really good. And he's proven that he can actually throw the football.
Well, I wouldn't say he's proven that he's not injury prone. He is injury prone. He just hasn't gotten injured this year.
Well, no, not. I meant just that he's proven that he can throw the football 50, 60 yards, which is crazy because everyone thought he was the running quarterback, and that was it. But
no, that absolutely is not true. And I know this from watching him in college. He was great in college. And, and by the way, if that Alabama team in 2019 was one of the best college football teams I've ever seen, with Tua. If Tua doesn't get injured, they're a top 4 team that year without question.
Oh yeah, that's not even a question.
They very easily could have been better than Clemson and Ohio State that year. I mean, he was injury prone since college, but that doesn't mean he isn't good. He's still very good.
He's talented. He's a talented quarterback. I don't know, but just like the media, and unfortunately, Zach Wilson had to take his licks early in the New York media landscape, which obviously does not help. Everyone's going to call him out. Everyone's going to get on his back,
including for stupid reasons at times.
Right, but then you have Robert Saleh doing his weekly spot on the Michael Kay show and trying to explain to the Jet fans, like, what do I do with this guy? He doesn't know, and I don't blame him because I don't think it's 100% his fault by any means.
I don't think he's the one making the decisions.
Oh, it's Woody Johnson. Totally.
Woody Johnson, or it's Joe Douglas. I don't know who's responsible, but whoever it is
it's time to clean house.
Right, like I don't know if Woody Johnson is the reason we didn't do anything, or if it's Joe Douglas or whoever's choice it was. I don't know.
Well, and Robert Saleh's got to stop saying, like, oh, he's got potential. He's got potential. He's 24 years old. He's got potential. Stop. No, he doesn't have potential. It's over.
He has potential to be a backup.
Hey, by the way, there's some expensive backups out there that made a lot of money. If you remember, and this is going back a ways, Kyle Orton, who sat behind Tony Romo, made $10 million as a backup.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what potential means. Because the truth is, the Jets don't seem to think he does.
He has no potential. As soon as you pulled him out of that game and you put Simeon and even Boyle in that game, you were pulling the plug on his season, 100%. Right,
and the Jets season too.
Well, first of all, the Jets were going nowhere, but
I mean, that's officially pulling the plug.
No, I agree with you, but I'm just
saying the Jets were going nowhere. That wasn't people's attitude last week. Last week, the attitude among Jet fans was we still have a shot. And my argument was, no, we don't.
I'm with you. You and I agree on that front, and we're both very disgruntled Jet fans.
And by the way, that wasn't just from Jet fans. Just in general, the argument was, well, maybe the Jets can make the playoffs. First of all, the AFC right now is too strong for the Jets to make the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely.
The fact that, I mean, even in the NFC, they wouldn't have a shot. And the Jets, they did get a little bit of a break with the Deshaun Watson and Joe Burrow injuries. But even then, I don't think the Jets are going to beat the Browns, even if DTR plays.
Hell no, they're not beating the Browns. The Browns' defense is better than their defense anyway.
Yeah. The Browns defense is very good. I mean, the Jets defense is also very good, but I mean, you have to have more than a defense. You have to have an offense.
Well, that's the problem. The Jets don't score touchdowns. What was that? Their first touchdown in like 6 games or something?
Yeah, not only that, but like when your offense is really bad, it affects the defense. I mean, they gave up 32 points against the Bills.
I mean, it was just a shit show, and there was just no way to really handle that situation one way or the other, whether it was the media coming down on Saleh or Zach Wilson or the offense or the offensive line. And I think Becton ended up getting hurt again at the end of that game. I mean, it's a nightmare. But
and by the way, it's not just the offensive line. Tony Romo did a thing where he showed all the wide open receivers that Zach Wilson just missed. I mean, some of it is just really bad pocket presence. And a lot of quarterbacks, I mean, you know who else has a bad offensive line? Everybody. 2018. Like, everybody has a bad offensive line. We said it about every team.
It's a good point.
I don't know. Like, it's not just about the offensive line. Sometimes it's also the quarterback.
That's true. I mean, and also Zach Wilson's, I forgot, they were doing some stuff on it. His clock in his head. That was like the big thing this year that they were talking about. Like that he has problems like kind of moving around and the snap count in his head. That was a big problem.
His pocket presence is awful.
It's like 0, really, to be honest.
Yeah, he has no pocket presence.
But all right,
he can kind of throw on the run a little bit, but in the pocket, he's clueless.
That's true. And speaking of clueless, by the way, the Chargers and Brandon Staley. So Brandon Staley got into it with a media member, and I was listening to the radio over the past couple of days, and someone said it really well. And they said they asked Brandon Staley the "I got you" question, and he fell for it. Basically,
what was the question?
I don't remember the exact question, but it was about him still having control over the defensive plays as the head coach, because he took over, or he took back defensive calls. So people would say, like, are you still going to call the defensive plays? And like, he went off on this media member. Don't ask me that question. You don't have to ask this question every week. Well, maybe if you played defense and won a game, we wouldn't have to ask you that question.
To be fair, that's a pretty reasonable question.
Again, I'm going to try and look up what the question was.
I don't know if that's what actually happened. That makes him look like an ass, because that's a totally good question. By the way, that's the exact type of questions reporters should ask. It's better than them asking, how did it feel when X, Y, and Z happened? Like they're your therapist or something. Like it's ridiculous.
So Brandon Staley was combative when confronted with blown close games, because that's been their issue this year. They lost a close game to Minnesota, which they probably should have won in Minnesota, by the way.
Yeah.
There was quite a few other games that were close.
Well, no, they beat Minnesota, right?
Oh, did they beat Minnesota?
They beat Minnesota. You're thinking of no, they lost to the Cowboys.
That was a close game too, I think. But
they lost to the Eagles. They lost to mostly good teams, other than the Packers and the Titans.
But everything's been like 3-point games for them this year. That's been like the magic number for them.
Yeah.
And so he was.
But losing to the Packers is bad, because that's a team that's legitimately inferior.
So it says here, I'm not here to talk for the fan base. Staley said, I'm here to talk to my players, the locker room.
Thought he would.
And he goes on to say, I know that we give ourselves a chance to win every single game with the game plans that we have. What else did he say? The defense was a problem once again this game, but Staley seemed to push back. Quote, we've done it here. You guys act like we've never played good defense. Well, actually, that's kind of not true, because you're not winning games.
Yeah.
He said, that's not the truth. That's not the truth. You act like we haven't made any improvements. What improvements have you made, Brandon? I haven't heard them or also, seen them.
Haven't made any improvements doesn't mean reaching expectations, right?
I mean, Justin Herbert, Austin Eckler, you have one of the best combos in the game, in my opinion.
Well, the thing is, their offensive weapons are good.
Yeah.
Their defense isn't great.
I think they have one of the worst like rushing defenses.
Their defense is not good, and Brandon Staley is a defensive-minded head coach. I mean, imagine if the Jets had a terrible defense, Robert Saleh would get killed for that.
100%.
I mean, he's killed for the offense, and he doesn't have much to do with the offense at all.
By the way, I want to point out one other thing as well. Defensive head coaches do not have success in the league. They just don't. It's rare. Like, you really need an offensive-minded coach.
Okay, I'll give you an exception.
Okay.
Bill Belichick.
Okay, that's a little bit of a different situation.
Although, I think he kind of runs the offense too.
No, but that's a little bit of a different situation though, because you have Tom Brady for 20 years. But
Right. All else being equal, you're better off with an offensive-minded head coach than a defensive-minded head coach. Although either one of those could be bad depending on the situation. Yeah, no, you're right about that. You're right. Yeah. I mean, if you look at offensive-minded head coaches, they tend to be better.
Well, look at Andy Reid.
Andy Reid is a perfect example. And by the way, I think Andy Reid's a better head coach than Bill Belichick. And that's not a controversial thing to say anymore.
I don't think that's controversial, especially the way the Patriots have been the past couple
If you said
years.
that 4 or 5 years ago, you'd be looked at as a crackpot. Now it's proven to be correct.
I mean, Sirianni, who I happen to like out of Philadelphia, I think he's offensive, right? Yeah, he was offensive. An OC. Like, a lot of OCs become good coordinators, well, except for what's his name, who keeps getting rumored to be a head coach, Bieniemy. Like, for some reason they won't make him a head coach, but
because he didn't have anything to do with the play calls in Kansas City.
You're right. That was basically Andy Reid.
It was all Andy Reid. Anybody could have. I could have been the offensive coordinator. They would have had success.
It still would have won too, probably.
Yeah,
but I don't know. Brandon Staley's going to get fired at the end of the year. That's just where I see this heading.
He should.
And I don't know, what is their record right now. Do we know what their record is? As
4-6.
All right. I mean, 500 is not enough to save his job, right? I don't think so.
No.
So
and he has too much talent around him.
Like I said, I think that Herbert and Eckler are a really healthy, when healthy, are a top 5 combo when healthy. I feel like.
Yeah, no, without question. And they still have a juggernaut on paper when it comes to offense, and they can still put up a lot of points. I think the biggest problems are their defense and their decision making in close games. They can't win close games, except that game against the Vikings. But for the most part, they don't win close games.
Well, that's a massive problem. Also, Keenan Allen, they have Joey Bosa as a linebacker. They have a lot of names, and they just and they just don't win. Now, Justin Herbert, it seems like he throws for 300 yards like every game, and they just don't win.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It seems like he does.
And then I don't know. It's a very odd situation. Brandon Staley is one of those guys that really shouldn't be a head coach. But I could debate and say the same thing. Robert Saleh is really not a head coach material either.
Yeah, I mean, the obvious difference is he doesn't have the talent that Brandon Staley has.
That's a good point. Also, like everyone said, oh, Saleh came from the 49ers. He came from a solid foundation. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't. So, well, speaking of firings, by the way, I'll go down that road too. Steelers fire offensive coordinator Matt Canada. This was coming. This was coming. We were just a matter of when.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Kenny Pickett's having an abysmal year.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not surprised they did it. They had to fire him. Who's taking over the play calls?
I have to look that up. I don't know if they said, but the way I found it out, though, again, shockingly, on Twitter, and I want to make sure I get the statement correct. Here it is. Matt Canada has been relieved of his duties as offensive coordinator. This is from Mike Tomlin. I appreciate Matt's hard work and dedication. I wish him the best moving forward in his career. That basically means, sayonara, you didn't do the job correctly.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're trying to end it amicably.
I mean, we saw those weird stories come out with Matt Canada. Also, that like he got hacked on social media. That was a weird story that was going around for a period of time.
What was it?
I don't know, like his email was put out there. His NFL email was put out there.
Oh, right.
So
yeah, Steelers fans I know hated Matt Canada.
Do you remember they were like chanting, like, go back to Canada or whatever?
Yes.
But the Steelers offense is a struggle. And Kenny Pickett's a much better quarterback than people realize, I feel like.
But like the thing is, the Steelers aren't all that bad this year.
They're not. They're just in a division that's stacked.
They're in a really tough division. There are certainly a lot of divisions that they could win.
I mean, if it wasn't for Burrow going down, they would have been guaranteed a third place at best. I feel like the Ravens are just too good.
Yeah, the Ravens are too good. But I don't know. With the 2 injuries, they could be second place.
That's a good point.
They could still be a playoff team.
I mean, what's their record now? Now that I'm asking about that,
it's a winning record.
Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. They are 6-4 as we speak now.
6-4, and they're beating teams that really aren't all that bad. They're beating good teams.
Right. I mean, and they're just getting by offensively enough. And Mike Tomlin is just one of those guys who knows how to win games like in the last 3 minutes. That's just like his attitude and
they beat the Ravens,
which was a sick game, like in every way, shape, or form, the way they
Yeah.
won that game.
I mean, like they're really not a bad team. They beat the Raiders with Garoppolo. I mean, they stink now, but the Raiders were an above average team.
But you could say like the whole AFC North has like been a coin flip. Like the games could have gone either way in that division.
I think the Ravens have been the best.
No, but I meant in general. Like if the Ravens could have lost another game or two, and
I mean the AFC North until these injuries, I would say were the best division in football because there were no bad teams.
That's a good point.
Like every other division has at least one or two bad teams. I mean, they didn't have anybody they didn't have any bad teams.
I mean, who thought Cleveland was going to be 7-3? I mean, no one.
By the way, I think the thing with Cleveland is that they're good as long as Watson is healthy.
Well, I also liked who was the original backup? PJ Walker. I actually liked the way PJ Walker was playing.
I mean, they beat the Niners with him,
which was sick too. That game was a
Niners, but
but that was a blowout. That wasn't even a close game. I don't think
when they played the Niners.
Yeah, I thought that was a blowout, wasn't it?
No, they barely beat the Niners.
Oh, I don't know. Well, or maybe they had a big lead and the Niners cut it.
You're probably thinking of a different game.
I don't know, but Cleveland's playing good football.
The time that the Browns beat the Bengals.
Maybe that was it.
But that was with Deshaun Watson.
Right. But Myles Garrett is, what would you say, defensive player of the year? Probably this year?
Probably. I mean, not that I care who wins defensive player of the year, but it's...
No, but I'm just saying he's that guy. Like, he's the dominant defensive guy.
Also, it's like, by the way, going back to Burrow, I've been saying, like, he shouldn't have been playing this whole year.
Agreed. Totally.
He was playing injured. It's like, you're not going to get better if you play injured. They should have just not played him. And
then the whole mystery, do I come back? Do I not come back? That was a whole mess. But
that would have, right. I mean, like, I would have it would have been better if they had just not played him. Maybe he would have gotten better. I don't know.
That's a good point. I mean, obviously, we'll cover all the picks. Obviously, usually we do a Thursday pick. Obviously, we're not going to do that this week with Thanksgiving. Obviously, there's 3 Thursday games, so that'll be part of Football Friday, which will be on Thursday this week. So we'll do picks then. But let's move on. Let's talk some LSU basketball and Angel Reese. Suspended. It's being alleged that it's due to a low GPA. I heard it's like in the 2s is what I'm hearing, which I don't know. It used to be like a 1.5 was acceptable as an athlete. Now, I don't think that's acceptable anymore.
Well, a 2 is a C, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's not that bad.
But I think it used to be like a 1.5 was acceptable as an athlete way back when. Now there's standards.
I mean, I don't know. This story sounds a little unusual for star athletes because usually they get like a lot of special treatment when it comes to grades.
Well, now they can't do that anymore because now there's requirements with all these NILs and deals and nonsense. And stuff.
I guess that might be true.
By the way,
I don't know. I can kind of see that.
The funniest part of this story, by the way, when all the outlets were covering it, we reached out to Angel Reese's agent.
She has an agent.
She has an agent. That think about like 5-6 years ago when that would have been illegal.
But that proves that means Reggie Bush should get his Heisman back.
You're right. I remember that whole debate.
They allow all this stuff now.
Right, but they're going to say, it wasn't allowed at the time and blah, 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 blah. But, I mean, you're bending rules. Like, if you're going to say that, then you should say Pete Rose should be allowed in the Hall of Fame because now they are in bed with the gambling companies.
Well, no, it's completely different because because you still can't bet on your own sport. Pete Rose would not be able to do what he did now.
I'm just saying, though, I think it's a little hypocritical that, like, now they're all in bed with the gambling companies and he can't be in the Hall of Fame.
No, I think he should be allowed. I think he should be allowed in the Hall of Fame, just not for that reason. Like, I think
right.
Just the fact that he was a good enough player to make the Hall of Fame means he should be in the Hall of Fame. I say steroid guys should be in the Hall of Fame too. Now, my view is if you're on like the fence and if you took steroids, okay, that should disqualify you, but not if you're clearly a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean that's a whole debate that could span
and it's
hours.
also a debate I'm extremely sick of. It's like, should steroid guys be in the Hall of Fame? Should they not be? It's like the Michael Jordan LeBron debate of baseball.
Oh God, I'm so tired of that debate.
Who's
the GOAT? Who's the GOAT?
honestly, I don't care who the GOAT is anymore.
That's what they call like a sports talk radio topic. Like when there's nothing going on during the day, during the show. All right, we're gonna throw out the GOAT topic. LeBron or Jordan? Call in.
Sports talk radio during like the summer.
That's what they do.
It'd be very, very hard to do when nothing is going on.
Right after the Super Bowl, too.
I remember I was in Charlotte for a summer, and they did the and it was like, I mean, there's no baseball team in the area.
Nope.
Nothing. Like, what do you talk? Like, what do you talk about? Like
college sports. College sports.
Yeah, it's just really tough.
But yeah, this story, like, this is more of a talking point, really, at this point, because again, no one knows what actually happened.
To be fair, that's probably true.
Yeah,
we don't know for sure. That doesn't sound like an extremely unbelievable thing that the GPA is the reason.
Yeah, but here's the problem, though. Like, now that you have NILs and agents and stuff involved, do these student athletes really care what their grades are if they know they already have $1 million or $2 million NIL deals coming out of college?
Well, I think you are. Yes, although you could have said the same thing when there weren't NIL deals if you're a star athlete then.
Well, no, you couldn't get the extra endorsement money back then.
Well, you couldn't get any endorsement money back then.
But that's what I'm saying. Now that they have endorsement money, do they really care?
Right. Well, I think they care as much as it allows them to play.
That's true. I didn't even think about that because they have to play to earn the endorsement.
Like, I don't think they really. I don't think it makes that much of a difference anymore. I guess they might care in terms of like. The thing is, I don't think athletes care that much more or less with NIL money or not about their grades because they're in a similar position anyway. I mean, you get more money if you might get that money now, but I mean, I don't know. First of all, I don't think college grades really matter that much. I mean, I spent 4 years in college. They never came up in an interview. I mean, like I was really worried about my grades and they didn't matter that much to be completely honest.
I mean, trust me. Again, I went 4 years. I got an honors degree at LIU. I think I finished with like a 3.67 GPA, but like, not that I brag about that by any means, because I could care less. But like, I think I had one interview when I was going for broadcasting jobs, asked me about my GPA, and I'm like, really?
What year is Angel Reese? She's a sophomore.
I think she's a sophomore.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look that up because I don't remember. But
I remember there was something with Ben Simmons when Ben Simmons was at LSU. Like he had really bad grades. Now I see why. He was probably not willing to put in any of the work.
I think you're right. I think she is a sophomore. I mean, the most viral moment was what was it? Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark in the like that was the greatest one of all time. You can't see me. Like that was one of the greatest moments of all time. Like, hey, that put women's college basketball on the map, probably to be watched.
It really did. Now people are like gambling on women's college basketball.
Well, let's be fair. People are gambling on a lot of sports now. But
you can gamble on you can gamble on a lot of things. You can gamble on elections,
well, that's a whole different issue. But I was going to say the one I saw the other day, and I'm going off a tangent for a second. I saw ping pong on one of the apps the other day, and I like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, I will never understand why people bet on horses. I'll never understand the appeal.
That's huge. You have no idea.
I don't get it.
I won't do it because I don't understand it. You know who really is in that space and understands it well? Portnoy, Barstool.
Yeah,
like that's...
I don't get it. I don't get the appeal of horse betting.
First of all, that's like legit handicapping if you think about it. Trying to figure out a horse. I don't
bet on things I don't know anything about.
That's the thing. Like, I'll do NFL. I like NBA. That's really my sport. But gambling is tough. It's hard to win.
Well,
MLB. It's tough. I think that's one of the hardest ones.
Unlike the pros, I don't bet on baseball.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've tried it, but it's tough.
Yeah,
to win the run differential is tough, but it is what it is. All right, let's move on a little bit. Actually, let's talk about the weird story you and I were kind of laughing about. So the NBA says LaMelo Ball must cover his LF tattoo, citing policy. Now, you and I were having a good chuckle about this. So the name of that tattoo stands for his company called Le France, which is apparently a clothing brand company. He had it, I think, on his like left ear or or earlobe or neck, like right over there somewhere. And they basically
Like
said,
right around here.
yeah, and you can't wear that. That's a brand we might not be with or responsible for. And I was like, huh?
Yeah, I'm not particularly surprised because this is all lawyery stuff.
But
This is like this is a very lawyer sounding thing. Like,
I mean, I thought the NFL was the one who cared about all the dollars and cents at the bottom line. Now the
well,
NBA
they're
does.
all like this. They're all like this. I'm not particularly surprised, although I will say LaMelo Ball, oddly enough, does benefit from this, I think, because beforehand, I never heard of this brand. So whether he has a tattoo of it, like if he actually had a tattoo, if he actually didn't cover it up, hardly anybody would notice. Hardly anybody watches the Charlotte Hornets anyway. It's like,
Wait a minute, but LF, it's not like a full name.
yeah, it's a brand.
I mean, LF could be anything, to be honest.
Well, they're saying because it's the brand logo.
Oh, please.
That's what they're saying.
They said it was literally an L and an F on a tattoo. That's all they said it was. Give me a break. I mean, like,
So, yeah, I don't know. I guess the NBA doesn't have better things to do.
he just got a max contract, I think, in the offseason also, which made no sense. You also have to remember that he was part of the biggest headache of a brand way back when, Big Baller brand.
Yes, yes. That was back when he was still in high school.
I don't even know if that was he also the one that got stuck in China.
No,
that was that LiAngelo. God, and Trump had to bail him out.
In China.
Trump had to bail him out.
Yeah, I remember it vividly.
But I don't know. I think this is stupid. And they had an NBA spokesman comment on NBA rules for a tattoo.
For a tattoo.
I mean, you're telling me there's not more pressing issues, Adam Silver? Really? Like that James Harden is just totally like beefing it on the court and not caring? I mean, do I have to go back? Because I have that sound here. There it is. A liar. That sound. Just so why'd you go worry about that? And because we were saying this before, because we were talking about guys that don't care. Leonard. Like you were talking about how gamblers are affected. What about Kawhi every night? Who decides whether he's going to play or not?
Yeah, I mean, don't they have to just? I can imagine that has to be.
They changed the rules now that you can no longer just sit out. But Kawhi came out and said, and I'm kind of quoting from my head because I don't remember, but he's like, I don't care about the rules. I'll sit out if I want to sit out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's nothing wrong with players sitting out, but you have to that information has to be at least a little bit in advance because first of all, it affects gambling a lot. And
yes.
Not only does it affect gamblers, but I mean, people are going to see the best players play.
Well, and the NBA has a massive problem. We've known this for years. Like you'll see guys. So these fans pay a lot of money for when these star teams come into their arena, and then they're not playing that night.
Right.
Like,
exactly. So I don't think. I really don't think that is. I don't think it's fair when people say that it doesn't matter if if a player sits out or not. No. It matters. It doesn't matter if the 12th man on the bench plays, but it does matter if stars play.
It's a big deal. And I don't know if you remember the story with Steph Curry and the small the small girl that was a fan. Like she held a sign up saying, I'm the biggest like Steph Curry fan. And he was sitting out that night and he had to make it right by basically inviting her to Golden State, sitting in the front row in Golden State. But think about that. Seriously, like you had to make it right because of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's this whole, by the way, like I said, I don't have a problem with this quote unquote load management. I understand it. It's a long season, but there has to be some type of process for it.
I mean, are we really going to have to get doctor's notes now to prove that we're injured or not? That's essentially what they're doing now.
Yeah, kind of, but I mean, it's better than it was before.
I don't know. Just long story short, NBA, figure it out. Like,
yeah, I don't know.
Like the one joke I like to say about the NBA, nothing but assholes, NBA, because they just don't know how to handle their branding and their money and their situations correctly, including internationally. But that's a whole nother issue. Where do we want to go next? All right, since we're talking about assholes, we'll go here first. Knicks owner James Dolan resigns from NBA board committee positions. Now, this is in response to a story that happened a couple months ago where the Knicks filed a pity lawsuit against the Raptors because they had a former employee go from one team to the other, and he tried to take all the stats and computer stuff and put it on a drive and give it to the Raptors.
Yeah.
And it was like a whole thing.
Well, James Dolan, the craziest thing that he does is the whole face recognition technology thing, where he bans people who are trying, like people who would buy tickets and try to go into the arena and face recognition technology. Typically, they're lawyers that are like suing them or something like that.
Yes.
And he uses that technology and bans them, which is extremely it's creepy. I mean, he can ban people from the arena. I'm sure he has a right to do that, but I mean, doing that is really, I mean, that thing is really creepy. That type of surveillance.
Go ask Charles Oakley how he feels.
Yeah, I mean, that whole thing is just weird. I mean, there's also been a history of him like telling people to leave when, if you have a sign that says Dolan sell the team or something.
Oh, no, that's actually, they have proof that that's happened. Like, people are walking out with signs. I mean, you're a fan for a reason, right? I mean,
James Dolan couldn't be he's the biggest asshole even among sports owners.
And that's saying a lot, because there are a lot of idiot asshole owners, including the one in Oakland right now who's moving his team to Vegas. But this whole story with Dolan, like,
but the thing is, I didn't know he had NBA board committee positions. I don't even know what that is.
It's basically running committees for different things. I had the story up here and I can't find it at the moment, but basically, here it is. So Dolan is on all these committees. He's on the influential advisory, finance, and media committees. And he also called out Adam Silver's objectivity on top of it. Now, of all guys to call Adam Silver's objectivity, James Dolan.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think this is a really big story because it involves James Dolan. I don't think anybody has really heard of these board committee positions. No. I can't imagine it's going to affect the NBA that much.
No, they're probably saying good riddance. I don't have to hear your egotistical.
Yeah, I don't know what this whole thing is.
And he's now saying that someone will take over his voting power when they have to do the 32 teams to vote on something. By the way, he was one of two teams that tried to vote against the Jordan selling of the ownership stuff with Charlotte, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do.
So, like, that's Dolan in a nutshell. He has to go against everybody.
Yeah. Well, Michael Jordan is like the Michael Jordan of bad owners.
Well, that's true. Hey, he made a lot of money off that ownership, by the way.
Oh, he did, but so does every bad owner makes a lot of money.
Jeffrey Loria. That's another one. He bought in for like $200 million and walked out with like 3.5. Like, it's insane what they buy these franchises for. But since we're talking about franchise and expansion, let's talk about Shaq. Now, I don't know if you saw this story, but Shaq wants to be involved with potential NBA ownership in Las Vegas with LeBron or without LeBron. And by the way, I do agree with what you said. Like, why does he care about if it's with LeBron or without LeBron now when LeBron is still in the league? But I don't know. What do you think about this expansion to Vegas, maybe with Shaq being on ownership?
I mean, I don't really care if Shaq is on the ownership or not, though. It does sound like something he would do. I'm sure he has enough money with all those Papa John's and insurance commercials he's been doing to buy into a Las Vegas team.
Well, actually, he had ownership in Sacramento. And the reason he had to, I think, dilute from that or sell it was because he made a deal with one of the gambling companies.
So wouldn't that mean that he can't purchase an NBA team?
Well, that's why he had to sell off whatever ownership he had in Sacramento.
Right. So wouldn't he have to not have that affiliation with gambling?
You're right. Exactly. So I don't understand unless he's going to get out of that endorsement deal.
Which I don't know. Maybe he will, but he doesn't. He seems to love endorsement deals. I mean, look, whether or not Shaq is involved in buying the team doesn't change that much. it would be some other billionaire. Well, he's not a billionaire, I don't think, but it would be some probably billionaire or very wealthy person who's going to buy into it. And I would like to see it. I think three sports now have a team in Vegas. I would like to see every sport have a team in Vegas. I think it's a smart idea. I mean, not that many people live in that area, but it's a huge vacation spot. There's probably a disproportionate number of sports fans who go to Vegas, I would say. And it becomes like a vacation spot to see the games. I would say any team in Vegas is going to have a disproportionate number of out-of-town fans, away fans at these games.
Tourist attractions.
That's not a very big metropolitan area. Vegas is like a city in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a desert. But the point is that there's a lot of people that want to go to Vegas. So I think it's always going to be a good idea to have teams in Vegas.
It's a tourist attraction. That's why they want to.
It's exactly that. It's a tourist attraction, which I think makes it smart. I mean, if anything, I think there might be an expansion.
Right. And that's why I think what'll happen. Also, I think they're taking the former Trop spot, right? Where the Tropicana Hotel was. I think they were taking one of the hotel spots where they're building, because originally they were going to build it away from the Strip. Then that changed, and I think they're taking where one of the older hotels was, and I think that's worse, because then you're going to have traffic up the wazoo around the stadium if that's the case. But I don't know. I'm not a fan. Well, I like the NBA team in Vegas because I just think the NBA travels better than, like, say, baseball. Baseball does not travel very well, especially in the Vegas circles, but any other sport you want to put in Vegas, fine. NFL, fine. NBA, fine. NHL, it worked out the first couple of seasons.
Yeah.
So,
and by the way, with the NHL, it worked out, and that's a hockey team. Hockey is not big in the Southwest at all.
No, not at all. So, I don't know. I don't think this is as big a story. The only reason it's a big story is because obviously Shaq's name was put in on it, and then he obviously mentioned LeBron. Obviously, LeBron can't be an owner now because he's in the league. But we're seeing now former athletes getting involved in ownership, and that's like a huge thing. Like,
well, because they made so much money.
I mean,
athletes haven't always made the amount of money that.
The one exception I would say is the one that didn't really work was Derek Jeter with the Marlins, but
that's because the Marlins were just a clown show.
Well, Bruce Sherman is one of the worst billionaires I've ever seen in my life, but I don't know. We see a lot of players get involved. Tom Brady now, I think, technically has ownership in the Raiders. Doesn't he? Like 3% or whatever?
Something like that.
I think him and the Davis family have become friends, or however that worked out. I think he also has ownership in the Las Vegas Aces, I think, also. So I think he's got both of those ownerships, but that's everybody. But
it's crazy to think that not too long ago, there were no teams in Vegas.
I knew it was going to happen at some point just because they knew the gambling was big. And
it always was.
Al Michaels was on it before everybody, because like everyone would yell at him because he would give the gambling lines. Oh, well, and I hate when he does that obnoxious thing where the line is close for somebody. He'll just say, yeah, we're looking for that number. I know everyone's looking to cover it. I hate when he does that, by the way, but he was on it way before everybody else was.
Yeah, well, it's when it became legalized nationally where teams started to, well, not legalized nationally, but like all the states are allowed to legalize it, and all of them probably will.
Right.
They just haven't all done it yet.
I mean, like, I don't know if you saw it, but like ESPN Bet, which is the new platform that ESPN made the deal with Penn National Gaming. Like, that was their big deal. I think it was like 10 years. Like, it was a lot of money. It was like $1.5 billion. It was a huge deal. And for people who don't know, Penn National Gaming was the one that did the Barstool Sports book before that went down and blew up in flames.
El Prez brought it back for like $1.
Well, the whole company. Yeah.
The whole thing.
But I don't know. I actually downloaded the ESPN Bet app, but there's one problem. Where is it not legal?
Well, I'm sure they have a system where it's like in different states, like if it's legal or not in different states.
So it's not legal in New York right now, ESPN Bet.
Why? Sports gambling, that was legal.
Right, but they don't have the clearance for New York. I looked inside the app.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So it's
basically all the So Massachusetts, I can open the app, like I have it, but it says come back when New York is available.
I see what you're saying. Okay, so it has to get certain types of clearance. I do think that sports gambling being legal for everybody is not as good for the casinos and the sports books because there's nothing special about it anymore.
Right.
I mean, like when I go to Vegas, if I go to Atlantic City, I don't go there to bet on games. I can bet on games whenever.
Right. That's easy.
It's just harder to do it in Atlanta. Like all I do is why do I go? Why would I go up to like a teller, give my pick, have a piece of paper that I could lose for all I know?
Oh
And
God,
like it just adds another step to it that I don't need to.
like I like the apps. Like this is no secret. We use it for Football Friday. We like DraftKings because it's an easy app to use. Like everything is on there. Like I've tried FanDuel. It's not as easy. I think it's a little more challenging to use FanDuel than DraftKings because there's a lot more steps involved in FanDuel. But I don't know. I like the apps. I literally have the DraftKings app on my phone. It's the easiest thing to use. You attach an account, whatever you're using, and you go. It's no secret. And a lot of times they give you discounted deals and they run boosts and all that stuff. But it is what it is. All right, let's get to one last topic. You and I seem to like this topic a lot. Sports media news. So
we could do this, we could do this every week.
We could literally do this every week. I love this topic. So the big sports media story that was going around, I did a small clip video for our ETB Sports account. So Carissa Thompson goes on Pardon My Take, ironically enough, talking about Barstool Sports, and basically says, I made up the halftime reports from the coaches. And I was just like, really? Do you not want to work in this business anymore?
Yeah, I saw that. Everybody piled on her for this, and they should because you look like an idiot if you do that. I saw like there was some really funny memes going around social media about that. It was,
oh yeah, big time.
I mean, the thing is, I don't understand why she would do that. She didn't have to.
She literally could have hid behind that and said nothing.
Yeah, she could have just said he didn't respond. I mean, I don't know why she would do that. It's to me seems like really bad integrity.
I mean, every sideline reporter came out of the woodworks after that comment, including some of the biggest ones like Tracy Wolfson and who's the one for NBC? I'm losing my mind at the moment. Michelle Tafoya, who are the two biggest ones in the NFL and cover other sports. Said, "What are you doing? Why are you trashing us?"
Yeah, it's a really bad, unprofessional look to just lie about something like that. And the truth is, it's probably easy to get away with because she wasn't lying about anything that bad. It was just sort of like, we need to do better on defense, but you're still lying about what happened. And what if somebody had said, I never talked to her?
Well, so I know that's a tough one, but Andrew Marchand makes some good points, and I just saw them here. So he goes on to say in a tweet, Carissa Thompson messed up on many levels. 1, making up reports. Pretty self-evident as to why. Number 2, I get it. Pardon My Take is a relaxed environment, but revealing that was an odd choice.
Yeah.
And number 3, all the sideline reporters who do the job correctly look bad as a result. I agree with all 3 things.
All 3 of those things are true. Only 2 of them really affect her. She doesn't care. I mean, the other part is the externality of it to
now
the other sideline reporters.
She's not a sideline reporter anymore. She now is a studio host on Sundays for the NFL on Fox and Amazon Prime's Thursday Night Football. But why now?
Because
timing is bizarre.
It doesn't matter. She thinks that like because it's old news, it doesn't matter that much anymore.
I told you the way she led that statement off. Oh, I really shouldn't be saying this and I didn't get fired over it. But like, why would you say that?
That's not a smart thing to reveal. And just don't lie. Like, why lie about it? Just it's terrible journalism.
And by the way, not that I like to reach into people's pockets, but would you say she's probably making somewhere between $500,000 and like $800,000 a year doing what she's probably doing?
That, definitely.
Or like somewhere close to $1 million, probably.
I would bet you more than $1 million that she's making more than $1 million
between the 2 jobs, at least.
She's got to be.
So why the hell would you say anything? Why?
Because she knows there's not going to be any consequences to it.
Okay, the one time that people say there is no consequences, what happens?
Well, I mean, she's getting killed on social media for it, but I mean, she's not going to get fired for this.
The one time it will affect is when all the big names come out and crush her. That's what happens.
Yeah, and she's just, I mean, she still shouldn't have said it, obviously. I mean, more importantly than shouldn't have admitted it, like, shouldn't have done it in the first place. That's my biggest criticism.
And then she tried to backpedal, which was even worse. Like, basically saying, it's not what I really said.
That's literally what she said. That's literally what she said.
I hate when people do that, by the way. Like, I didn't say it that way. I was misconstrued. No, you weren't.
Like, literally, it's word for word what she said.
She said
she made up the reports.
That's the problem. And
she just made them up out of thin air. Just said, we got to be better on defense or whatever. Like the problem is, though, it's like, she didn't have to. She could have just not said that. It would have been fine. It's
here's
back to you.
Right. And here's the worst part. So her and Erin Andrews, I don't know if you knew this or not, but they do a podcast together under the Fox Sports brand because they both work together there. And apparently her spokesperson said that Erin Andrews apparently does that too.
She just makes it up?
In certain facets, like Carissa did, apparently.
Her spokesperson said that?
Her Erin Andrews' spokesperson apparently said
that. That is wild.
Now, I don't know. This whole thing was sidelined. First of all, let's be very clear about something. The sideline job is one of the most difficult jobs on the field, in my opinion. I feel like you have to chase down the coaches. You have to chase down the players. You literally have to. You're listening in an earpiece, basically say, all right, we're going to go down to the sideline. And if you don't have the person, you're screwed.
Definitely.
So you're just going to fabricate stuff and make shit up. And now you're going to make everyone look bad. Now people are basically going to undermine the sideline reporter now and basically say, oh, well, if you're just going to make it up, I'm just not going to talk to you anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that might explain. I guess the difficulty of being a sideline reporter might explain why she did it a little bit.
I'm surprised Saturday Night Live
deal with this. Like, I'm just gonna make this up.
I'm surprised Saturday Night Live hasn't tried to parody this yet. Waiting.
Saturday Night Live's not good anymore.
Oh no, I don't like Saturday Night Live. I'm just saying, like, they will parody the dumbest things that go down.
I mean, I don't think this is a big enough news story for SNL to touch it.
It would be funny if they did,
but I don't know. I guess I would find that funny.
But I don't know. Carissa's making good money. She never has to probably work again, to be honest. She's worked in this business a long time. She worked at ESPN, then she went to Fox, then she got the Amazon stuff. She worked for the NFL Shield, as I like to call it. And this is what you choose to do. By the way, Pardon My Take is a good podcast. Like, I enjoy what they do, and I like that they have personality, and I like that they break the rules, and that's what I like. That's what I kind of think of this podcast network. Like, obviously, we're not going to say hateful shit like some of the things that Pardon My Take and other Barstool podcasts say, but I like that it's a relaxed atmosphere. But sometimes relaxed atmospheres get you in trouble.
Well, relaxed atmosphere. It wasn't bad for Pardon My Take. It was good for Pardon My Take. It was just bad for her.
Every podcast, every platform played the clip.
Yeah,
everybody.
Yeah, but I mean, like, the thing is that means they're doing something good if they can get you to reveal something like that. Like, that's the other side of the coin. Like,
I'm all for that. I love when people are in a relaxed atmosphere that usually are not in it, and they reveal something. Like, that's the best interview.
But the thing is, like, I'm not mad at her for revealing it. If anything, I'd rather know that it happened. It's more the fact that she did it in the first place.
That, and like we keep saying, she never had to say it.
Right, she never had to. She could have just not said that.
Because now every time you watch her do a sideline, or every time you watch her on the host chair, you're wondering if she's making shit up.
Yeah, it was dumb. It was a bad decision for her.
Now,
but look, if you can get people to, I mean, if you're a host and you can get people to admit doing stupid things, you're doing something good.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I guess just because, like, you and I have worked in the business, we understand when things are faked and some things aren't.
I think you would know better than me. But yes.
There's many times where I'd be sitting in a radio studio and, like, they're reading stuff off a script. Or, like, they try to make it sound like it's their own. And that used to drive me crazy. Crazy. I'm like, guys, no, they're not going to believe you reading it off a paper. Stop taking credit. My favorite is when they would try to get a news source. And I'm like, are you going to give credit to the news source?
Yeah, you always have to give credit to a news source.
That drove me crazy. Like I got in trouble with my bosses because I was actually trying to point out the integrity route. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that in sports too.
I'm like, guys, and whenever I produce shows, I said, I told my host, I said, you're not putting a news source on the air unless you give them credit. Sorry, just will not do it.
You got it.
So, but I don't know. Did you have any other thing in media news you wanted to discuss or no?
Oh, the Richard Sherman Skip Bayless thing.
You're right. Okay, we can spend 2 or 3 minutes on that. Go ahead.
So I don't know if we can play. Do we have the clip?
No, I don't have the clip. We wouldn't be able to play it anyway.
In the during the show, they were talking about, I think it was the Jordan Travis injury or something like that.
Yes, his career's over.
Quarterback, and they were talking about it, and Skip Bayless was. By the way, in this case, I'm totally on Skip Bayless's side. Richard Sherman was being ridiculous, because he was, first of all, Skip was talking, and Richard Sherman cut him off and pulled the whole "I played and you didn't" card. It's like,
again for the millionth time.
Like, nobody likes it when athletes do that. I mean, nobody is saying that it doesn't matter that you played. It doesn't mean that. I mean, he should still be able to get his point off. Wait your turn and then say what you're going to say.
Right.
And you don't have to pull the whole "well, I played and you didn't" card. You don't know what you're talking about. I mean, just because you didn't play doesn't mean you don't know what you're talking about. I mean, Skip Bayless has been in the business for a very, very long time, longer than either of us have been alive.
We're talking about 40 plus years. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He does.
Well,
and it just looks, it's a bad look as a co-host.
I think part of the problem is because of Skip's reputation of, I say things just to get a rise out of people. Sometimes reputation. That's why athletes get mad at him.
Right. But in this case, it was just not an example of him doing that. It was just him merely talking about it and him not claiming to be claiming to have expertise that he didn't have. He wasn't. Well, he was just talking about it.
I'll say to you what I said before we came on here to record, that FS1 Fox Sports basically put together a very interesting roster of egos when they redid Undisputed.
Well, egos of former athletes, basically. It was Skip and going to be a former athlete.
Right. And originally when Richard Sherman became a media person, because I think he's on the Thursday Night Football Amazon Prime studio also when they go to the game. But originally I liked it because he was fiery. He didn't mind giving his opinion. Now it's become, with him, either I'm right or you're wrong.
Yeah, and also, it was all I mean, Keyshawn has a lot of experience doing TV.
Well, he also did the national radio show, the morning show for ESPN.
He was on ESPN for a very long time. He did the radio show on ESPN. He did for a long time. He did the Sunday Night Countdown.
Yeah,
on ESPN. So I can kind of understand that move. It just looks really bad. I don't know. Skip Bayless in this case is not out of line at all. I don't think. I mean, Richard Sherman just interrupted him blatantly and just made it. He just basically caused this fight for no reason. It was the whole "I played and you didn't."
By the way, just thinking about the amount of people who were on that show, I'll never forget when they re-aired when they did the first episode under the new brand. Think about who was on the TV sitting next to Skip. Okay, Richard Sherman, Keyshawn Johnson, Michael Irvin, all giant head cases.
Yeah, and 2 out of those 3 formerly on ESPN.
Right. So, and I don't know. I don't even know if I would call Keyshawn a head case, really, to be honest. But
he had an ego when he played.
But Sherman and Michael Irvin, when they get going, you can't stop them at all.
I would say all 3 of them were like that.
So I don't know. I was never a fan of Skip's at all. Just when he went over to FS1, first of all, I think ESPN and FS1 are both taking the hit when Skip left First Take. That was the big show.
Well,
it was such a
ESPN certainly not. I wouldn't say Fox Sports took a hit because they had created their own hit show.
No, but I'm saying is Undisputed is way below First Take in ratings and views.
Yeah. No, that's true. Although they didn't have it undisputed before Skip.
No, but I'm just saying is having a Skip Bayless led show and a Stephen A led show. Stephen A is going to win that battle and debate every time.
I don't know. I guess. I mean, it depends on. I guess that might be true. I mean, it depends on all sorts of other factors, also. But yeah,
also ESPN. Also ESPN's in more households than FS1. Also,
that's probably true. ESPN, I think, probably has an advantage in that regard.
But
I just found this whole feud between Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless to be really bizarre.
Yeah,
Stephen A. Smith is like going at him for. I don't know what happened with Shannon Sharpe.
Well, Shannon Sharpe was the original co-host with Skip Bayless.
I know, but like I don't know what happened with him, why he left.
Because I don't know if you remember the incident after. Well, the what's his name, the Buffalo Bills player, Hamlin. When the Hamlin incident. Well, not incident, when he almost died on the field.
I don't think that's why. I feel like it was something more than that. Like they were just fighting.
Well, that put him over the top because Skip put out that really horrible tweet, basically saying that they should have continued the game and the game goes on. And his tweet was seen 180 million times on Twitter. That's no exaggeration.
Like, I don't know if I think that was one thing. I think it was a long time thing though, brewing. Like it was
that didn't help it though.
Right. I don't know what happened. I mean, Stephen A. Smith is getting in on this and saying Shannon Sharpe was pushed out.
He was.
I don't know if that's true or not.
Skip pushed him out because Skip is the lead guy on that show.
He's the lead guy, but Shannon Sharpe could have. I mean, I don't know what happened. Honestly, I don't know. I was not there behind the scenes.
That would have been a great fly on the wall moment too.
Yeah, I mean, I would have. Yeah, I absolutely would have loved to see that. I just thought it was weird how Stephen A. Smith got involved. But I think I love Shannon Sharpe's new podcast with Chad Ochocinco.
Oh, well, you're not talking about the original. I was going to say Club Shay Shay, but
no, the one with Chad Ochocinco when they were talking about Viagra.
Oh, that was great. That might have been from his podcast. I don't know if.
Yeah, it was.
That was just a clip.
I forget what it's called. The one with, but they actually host a podcast.
Oh, I didn't know they co-hosted a podcast. I know he originally just had Club Shay Shay, which was
no, this is different.
But Chad Ochocinco is a character, man. He's entertaining. That's a guy I would listen to constantly. Actually, you know what? Put him and Stephen A. together and watch what would really happen. But I think that pretty much does it for this episode.
We went a long time.
But this is what, hey, you and I could talk sports media news for an hour on its own, probably. But make sure you follow the show on social media at ETB Sports, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at ETB Sports. Follow the Empty the Bench Podcast Network at ETB Network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, youtube.com/ETB Network, where you can find this show, and you can find Moving the Goalpost, which is the new show that Nick D and Liam Barwick host. A bunch of other shows, the Monty Moments. You can find a lot of other stuff. So make sure you go on YouTube and follow all our shows. And obviously for audio as well, Acast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, all the normal audio platforms as well. So you guys will have a show, episode 2, Friday. What else are we doing? Football Friday is going to be Thursday. Football Thursday, correct. Which is football on a Thursday for Friday. Yes. So that'll air at 9 a.m. Thursday morning, Eastern time. That'll be put out. So make sure you join us too, and a bunch of others will be on there as well. Give our picks and our locks, obviously presented by Wolf Spreads. So we'll make sure we get that out there as well. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So for Nick DiMartino filling in, for Tom Albano, I'm Nick Morgasen. Good night, everybody. We'll hopefully Tom will be back. He's been gone for 2 weeks. Hopefully he'll be back and to do next episode. And we'll see you guys next week.